Welcome, Internet, to the PixelPlay Podcast, your weekly gaming discussion podcast where we get together and talk about all things video games. I am one of your co-hosts, Kaylan, aka Catastrophe, joined as always by my co-hosts, Adam at CS Radical and Chris at Gin and Chris. This week, we're just shooting the shit, seeing where the conversation takes us, and just going right into it. I missed last week, and I missed a great discussion, and I want a little bit more. With that being said, guys, how are you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah.
There's snow everywhere. There's so much snow
There's
everywhere.
so much snow.
But that means we can play more video games without feeling guilty. No, that doesn't work.
Some of us can. Some of us have...
Nothing changed for me.
Wait, you don't get a snow day from being a dad? I thought
No.
that's how it worked.
No, that's usually
No,
the
I
opposite, actually.
I've spent more time outside the last week than I have in a month. It's just like tobogganing, building snow forts. Like, don't get me wrong, absolutely loving it, but gaming is taking a nosedive.
But how do
Oh,
your
no.
arms and your back feel about it now?
Oh, dude, I'm getting jacked. I'm getting that dad bod going. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I figure after all the shoveling I've been doing, I should have like 24-inch pythons, but instead I got like the Bugs Bunny fucking...
Yeah, it's great. When you shovel all that snow and your arms feel jacked, but your lower back feels like you're dead.
Yeah.
You're actually just a dead
I was
person.
smart. I got a proper ergonomic shovel, so actually this is the first year in a while that my back hasn't felt like shit after shoveling.
I did too, but there's been so much snow. It doesn't matter. The
Oh no,
shovel,
my
they
shoulders,
give up.
on the other hand, they did not care about how ergonomic that shovel was.
I feel like I'm getting old because I'm shoveling snow now, and I realize why people die of heart attacks shoveling this, and it's now becoming not like significant, but like it's becoming something I'm aware of.
Yes, like, okay. I can shovel this amount of snow in
That's
this amount
what
of time.
the snowblower's
without dying.
for.
Yeah, well, some of our snowblowers don't work, okay?
But I live
That's
in
me.
like
That's me.
we don't get enough snow to justify a snowblower, and also my garage is too small to hold even a car, let alone a car and a snowblower.
Well, I mean, last year, people bought snowblowers, and they didn't get used. I'm sure they're happy they got it this year.
For sure. I want to talk to you guys, bringing the topic to you guys, because like last week we're going to talk about what we've been playing and stuff, and I've been playing Dragon Age Veilguard.
Ooh.
I don't know if I'm liking it, and I can't decide whether I should quit or not. I bring it to you guys because I'm not one to typically quit video games, but like I've been playing it, and I don't really know what's going on. I don't really care what's going on. It's not bad. It's not great, but I was like playing it over the weekend, and then at one point I put my PlayStation in rest mode, and weirdly enough, it was just like for 5-10 minutes, just like entering rest mode. Do not turn off your PlayStation, which I'm now in this weird position where I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Long story short, I unplugged the PlayStation. I risked it. I come back and I probably lost an hour of progress in that game, and I'm like, do I want to go back and do this? Like I've talked a lot about, like, I don't have a lot of time as a dad to play video games. Is this what I want to be doing with my time? And so I guess, like, before we get into what you guys are playing, like, when should you call it quits on a game? Especially something like Veilguard's not getting bad reviews, but it's just like, when do you guys call it? Like, do you trudge through it and finish it, or do you like?
Me and Adam are
I don't
gonna
know.
have different answers for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chris is the 100% guy, so he'll force himself to do something. I'm the guy that goes, I have so many other things I can be doing. Fuck that. And that was me with Veilguard. How many hours are you into it, by the way, Kaylan?
Let me check. I'll check right now while we're
Because I
chatting.
made it maybe at most 5.
Okay.
5 hours or minutes? And that's a legitimate
Yes.
question with you.
I am currently 19 hours into Veilguard.
Okay, you're well past. Okay, look. I got to the point where you meet, I think it's Bellara, right?
Sure.
The Asian-looking girl.
There's like, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I almost
Like
want to say you
elf.
should quit just on the basis that I told you one of your party members and you're like, yes?
No, I thought like for a second because I was like, yeah, there's Bellara who's like the engineering elf.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of like Neve, the like sorceress chick. But
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, Nev Campbell, yes, of course.
Yeah.
That's what I just kept calling her for the 5 hours I played that game. Honestly, like, I got as far as when you have the selection to, like, which party member you want to chase after next, and I decided to go to one where I had to rescue him from, like, this underwater prison.
Yes, I did that.
And as soon as he started talking, I went, done! Because at that point, I'm like, I don't like anybody in this game already.
Mhm.
And here I am now, finally at the point where it's opening up, and the first thing I choose, and it's the most boring, dumbass fucking guy ever with a story that's just like, oh, like I don't even remember what it was, but it was something along the lines of like, oh, I was thrown in here for something that I needed to do or some sort of shit like that, and I just went and out because the story sucked as far as I had played it. As a guy who has played BioWare games for a while now, this is not what Dragon Age used to be. I don't mind the combat in Veilguard, but like, it's not what I expect from a Dragon Age game. It felt more like a Mass Effect game that happened to have swords and magic in it. I really feel like they might as well have just gone with the extra touch and made a magical gun, because it's basically what it was at that point. And honestly, like, as someone who hasn't played these games in a while, they did a very bad job of introducing it to you if you are either new or not up to speed. And that is the biggest failure. I just started, and we'll talk about it, a little bit later, but because I'm not going to review it yet, I am starting the new Trails for Daybreak. They have, before you start the game, a recap video you can watch that sums up the previous game, and they also have a archive of the timeline of the entire series, which is like 12 games now, a glossary of all the countries, all the major factions. So if you need to get a touch up on stuff, it's all there for you. Veilguard didn't give me that. They were just walking in, and Vareth starts talking, and I'm like, I know there's something I should remember, and I don't. Other than the fact that I banged the, what was her name? Josephine in Inquisition. That's about the most I remember. I couldn't tell you much about what Solus did. I couldn't tell you what the end villains were in that. I couldn't even tell you what, like, anything I did in Inquisition was, let alone Origin or 2, where apparently they are still mentioning those characters as well. I'm just like, man, I don't remember much of anything. I'm not going to sit here watching an hour-long video on YouTube about the entire story again. And even then, like, I'm 5 hours in and none of it's clicking anyway. What's the point? My thing when it comes to quitting is, and it depends on the game. If it's like a short, indie-ish sort of game, if it's not clicking in the first 30 minutes, it's done for me. For a game like Dragon Age where there is time, I gave it some rope, because I also saw that the reviews were not, like, bad, but they also weren't great, like, depending on which area of the internet you're coursing through. So I went, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I'll take a couple of missions, see what happens, and then by the time I got to where I stopped at, I went, no, I can't be devoting time to stuff where I'm not enjoying it this long into the game. If 5 hours in, I'm still not clicked, like, this isn't me at 16 years old playing a JRPG that is not going to be good for 10 hours. I can't do that no more.
Yeah. I think you and me are a little bit different in the sense I am more forgiving with games with like, oh, maybe it'll get better, blah, blah, blah. However, I have even been trying to get better at like not forcing myself to finish games that are just like not great. I do find it very difficult because it's like, I should just finish this game. I've started it, like I paid for it or whatever reasoning, I'm kind of thinking it's like guilt almost in the moment.
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, and I can tell you that there's times I've forced myself to finish the game because there's like just a few hours left and I felt okay. And then there's been times when I'm like, no, I should force myself to still play this game. It goes for another like 15, 20 hours and I've still not enjoyed myself and there's a lot left. And I'm like, I really should have quit this before. I've just spent another 15 hours and now I'm going to quit out. So like there was that game Gravity Rush, which is not a bad game. It's just like divisive in the sense like you either like the style of game it is or you don't. It was 21 chapters. I didn't mind the first bit because I was only playing like an hour or two a day. But I was on like chapter 15 and I was like, I don't enjoy this game. I don't know if it's the age of the game. I don't know what it is, but I don't love it. And I forced myself to finish it. It only took another like 3 hours in total. And I just streamed it my Steam Deck or something to like really just hammer through it where I could. I'm glad I finished it in the sense of like, there was that feeling of accomplishment, but it was only a few hours. And when I finished that game, I remember not wanting to beat the boss because I was like, I get to see the rest of the story. It was more excitement, like this fucking game will finally be done and I never need to look at it again. And that's not a good reason to play a game.
It really depends on where you're at. Like, because I was kind of like that with Forbidden West and the same thing of like, I was begrudgingly like, all right, fine, I'm finishing this game just to get it over with now because I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Now, I have another example, which is when I did actually quit. And I actually tried to play this game 3 separate times, and this is actually a beloved game. Like people love this fucking game, and that's Okami, like the wolf one. That's like Twilight Princess, but you're only the wolf.
That's gonna get a sequel and a remastering soon, I think.
Yeah, well, there's already an HD version of that game that's been going around forever. You can play it on anything currently for the first one at least. Sure, it'll get a remaster again.
I figure because the sequel's getting made, they'll probably do some other like sort of remastering to 60 frame it on PS5 or something. But
yeah, the reason I can't get into the game is 2 reasons. One, it's the attacks or drawings. Like you pause and then using the right joystick, you draw with a paintbrush, and that's how you do your crazy attacks. On the Switch, it's the best version of the game because you actually just use the touchscreen instead of having to like kind of pause the game and stuff.
Pretty well with the DualSense on the PS5 as well with the touchpad.
If they included it, I haven't played it on there. If they did, that would be genius. But still, it's kind of like I don't really like that mechanic. It really slows down it's an action game, and you're like pause, do a drawing, unpause. Did I draw it right? Sometimes it wouldn't work and all that kind of stuff. Also, the game is over 60 hours long. And like that's not like a completionist thing. That's just how long this fucking game is. I think the how long to beat is like 55 hours or something. It's insane how big this Okami game is because it shouldn't be that big. Like it's just an action game, I thought, right? So I mean,
unless you're really slow at it. I mean, according to the site, it's saying main story 33, main and sides 40, completion is 53.
Okay, never mind. Either way, it's way too long for me.
I'm still because I've never actually fully played. I didn't realize it was still that big a game of being like 40 hours.
Yes. And I remember having the HD version on PS3. I got like 15 hours in, and it was like fine. But I was like, I don't really want to keep playing this. Then I picked it up on PC years later. I'm like, I should give it another try. Tried it. Did not click at all. Then I was like, oh, apparently the Switch is the best version. Okay, I'll try one more time. And I regret it picking it up as many times as I did. Like, sure, the mechanic of it being on Switch helped a little bit, but not enough to just go through, like, say, 40 hours or whatever it is of this game that, for some reason, just didn't click with me. I respect the game. It's not like I think it looks beautiful, the music sounds beautiful, and everything like that. If it was a 10, 15-hour game, maybe I would have played it and loved it and been like, cool, that was fun beginning to end. But it just felt like way too open world and all this other stuff. But I've quit that game, and I actually like told myself I need to quit it. And the guilt was so big because I bought it 3 separate times to try. And it was kind of like I could have just not bought it those 2 more times. Bought it the first one, didn't like it, okay, quit and just never play again. So I'm trying to be better at quitting games because it's not worth the wasted time. In my opinion, like I never get a great feeling of like, I'm so glad I did that because the game is so much better than I thought. It's only ever relief of this game is finally out of my life. And that's like, what the hell was the point of that?
I think it also
brutal.
gets easier for us too, just because now that we've been around the bend long enough, like we have a pretty good eye for what we're actually gonna be interested in.
Yeah.
Like there are going to be pitfalls. Like again with me with Veilguard, I had to play it because I really have loved Dragon Age, so I suckered myself into it. But generally speaking, like you guys have seen with a lot of the indie stuff I play, I generally have a pretty good idea of when I look at something that it's actually something that's going to keep my interest. Whether it's, stuff like the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood or something completely random like Crime Scene Cleaner. Like sometimes you just get a sense of it. Now, obviously, if you're 16 and don't know any better, you just play whatever you have available to you at that time. Especially when we were growing up. Like, dude, the games that we used to play begrudgingly because we didn't know any better. Like, we all had games on our Sega, Genesis, or Super Nintendo that really we would never play again. But it's like the one of 7 games we had, so we didn't have a choice.
Yeah, and we were more forgiving back then too, because when you're just like a kid, it's like I had the Where's Waldo game on Genesis. It was 4 pictures. It was like 4 pages of a book. And I played it so often just because it was like not a great game, but I didn't care. I was a kid. It was like, Where's Waldo? There he is. Yeah. Like, who cares? But yeah, now as an adult.
Talking about South Park N64 was a great game.
Well, it's kind of the thing of like, it really is a telltale sign of just how well a game aged in the fact that like you remember loving it as a kid and then go back and play it and you love it even more because now you can appreciate it for what it actually was.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I
I'm
think,
torn.
Kaylan, if you're not loving it, I say just quit out.
I'm gonna give it one more shot. I just looked at the walkthrough, and I have about 9 missions left. Like 9.
I was gonna say, if you're like 20
Mm.
hours in, you probably aren't that far away.
Yeah. So I'm gonna catch up to where I was. I'm gonna try and maybe I'm just
I was
gonna
gonna
golden
say,
path
yeah.
it for a bit.
How long to beat says main story is
26 and a half.
26. So like, if you just bum rush the story missions, you should make some. Good
I've been
time.
screwing around a little bit, like trying to do some like the companion quests and stuff like that, and I don't think that's worth it. So
Yeah, I think at this point you're deep in enough that you can just make the decision. Like I said, like with Forbidden West, for example, where it's like, you know what? I don't need to get everything else. I can just rush through the story and be done with it. Because I probably like gave up on like 20 hours of gameplay with Horizon.
yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of games I've been playing, I also beat Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Nice.
Totally stand by my review. That game is fantastic. One of the best Zelda games in the series.
100%.
Maybe second only to like A Link to the Past. But
Technically, it's the only Zelda game
Get
in
outta
the
here.
series.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Actually,
They're still incorrect. It should have been called Legend of Link. What a terrible missed opportunity that was.
no, I fully stand by it. I absolutely love the game. Like perfectly timed. I finished like there's one level I don't love, and that's like the snow level. That one's a little BS, but I mean,
There's always a water temple somewhere.
There's always one.
There's always one temple that sucks.
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible. I just like I felt there was like this there's a mechanic of like you got cold if you weren't by fire, and I just felt that was annoying. I felt like I didn't have anything that was super effective against the ice creatures. Overall, that was the only thing. And then I felt the boss fight. And now, Chris, you can attest to this, and I want to know what your thoughts are. I found the boss fight for Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom was also a bit of a letdown.
The final boss?
Yeah. Because they take away one of like your key things that you could do. And then I feel like you kind of become a secondary character in that boss fight.
Yes.
Which kind of sucks. But I think those are like minor blemishes on an otherwise fantastic game. So like
100%.
If you loved A Link to the Past and you want more of that, if you liked Link's Awakening, it's more of that. I mean, heck, if you're a kid who's never played those top-down ones, this is a great transition from like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom down to this. Like, it brings in some of those aspects. So once again, I think I put Echoes of Wisdom as like my number 2 game from last year, and I think that's exactly where it should be. Like, it is one of the best games from last year.
Yeah, it is such a good game. So good.
Sounds like a great idea for you to keep in your back pocket for the Jin and Chris Classic at the end of the year.
Well, no, because I did play. I think I was mostly done, and I put it in like
if you're gonna technicality, I guess.
It was all in the runnings and stuff like that. So it's had its moment in the sun. I'm not gonna pull a like Shadow of the Erdtree situation here. But yeah.
I mean, technically, the game that's currently in the running was a game that was released in 2024, and I finished literally like the second week of January. So,
whatever. We're fast and loose with our rules here for the
it is true.
Awards.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Other than that, what have you guys been playing?
So I finally finished one JRPG, and like I said, I've moved on to another with Trails, but I did finish Persona 3 Reload.
Okay.
I remember when I said earlier to Chris that Persona 3 Reload might be the starting point. I've changed my mind. It's Persona 4 Golden, not just because that now that Reload's had a remake, that it's now an easier game to approach, but also, honestly, from a story and theme perspective, I don't think starting with 3 Reload, unless you're really into dark storytelling, is the best starting point, whereas 4, it still has murder, but it's a lot happier and a lot less
Be murdered.
the world is dying to levels of depressing constantly. So like, as someone who that was my first Persona game growing up with the PS2, so like I enjoyed it still going back and playing it. Like, if I had to rate it, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. But like, the reason it's a 7 is because honestly the story has not aged well for me personally. It's not the kind of, it may just be based on the time that we're in right now, but like, I did not need a game that is just absolutely full of depression, death, and just overall negativity. And honestly, like, compared to 4 and 5, or even Metaphor now, which is their most recent Persona-esque game, this one is just really weak altogether. Its story isn't that amazing. The characters are probably their weakest. I think this is still the point where I've gone back to try and play the first 2 Persona games that would have been on the OG PlayStation Japan got re-released. I think the original was re-released on PSP, and I think 2 is recently ported to PS4, I think it was. And they're both like very antiquated from their time, but they're also like for a Japanese JRPG audience, which is a lot more niche and difficult. So they didn't fit nearly as well with me. I mean, those who've played the Shin Megami Tensei like numbered games understand that because they're way harder than Persona games are. So this was like the bridging gap where they started to lean more into the, school slice of life edition of stuff that they do, whereas they really started to improve that formula and make it more almost like an anime video game in 4 and 5. I'm not saying this one is bad, but I'm saying like if this was the first one you would play, you'd probably get a lesser opinion of the series than if you started with either 4 or 5. So I would say, like, honestly, start with 4 Golden now. It's on Steam. You can get it nice and cheap. And I think, I'm sure there's probably mods, too, that can kind of, like, just make it a little bit nicer. Maybe run in 60 frame or 4K just to kind of balance it out. But, like, from what 3 Reload gave me, like, it was nice to go back and play. But I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, I needed to play it now. As I finished it, I went, that was neat. I'm glad that I used this as a filler game, though, because the main reason why I ended up deciding to go back to it is because January was really quiet after I finished Unicorn Overlord, so I needed something long, knowing that this time in February is when stuff would happen. So that was the first one. The other one I played this really neat little detective indie game called The Root Trees Are Dead, and that's spelled ROOTTREES. The Root Trees Are Dead. Essentially, it's a game that is all about detective work, as you are essentially playing like a detective that's like an Ancestry.com sort of researcher, where a family, I think it's the dad and their 3 daughters, passed away, and they're all like these members of a wealthy family that has spanned like 4 generations of this company, and they're trying to figure out like, okay, well, how does this estate get settled now? Like, who are actually like members of the family tree that this belongs to? So essentially, you get very bare bones information about that part of the family, and through, I think this is set in like the 90s or something, because of the like Windows 98 sort of desktop computer you have in there. So your job is through the internet. Okay, it definitely is 90s, because now that I remember, it's got 56K dial-up. There's your hint. Whether it's internet searching through public library records, magazine records, you try to find information slowly on the family and sort of try to figure out like who belongs with what, like who's the grandfather of this person, and you slowly root the family tree. I guess that's where the name of Root Trees is coming from. It's a really fucking fun detective game that really lets your logic brain go. It's an 8 out of 10 for me, and the only reason that it loses 2 points is because it does hit a wall where it was the game I need a hint. Like, because in the first, like, for the first half of the tree, it was just boom, found a fact, boom, found another one, boom, found another one. And it just kept going. And then finally, I just hit a wall. It has a hint system, and if you click it enough times, it'll just say, look, search this and this, if you really can't figure it out. But it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a hint, and then I'll probably be back in the balls rolling again. But it would be, I get a hint, I find 2 more pieces of information, but then I need a hint again because I'm lost again. So it was a great experience in the first half, and then I started needing to rely on hints a little too much. But as a proof of concept, I hope that they keep doing stuff like this, because if they make another one and make it a little less like hard to find information of, this would be like perfect for me, because I love the idea of just like going and finding shit and just rooting stuff out, rather than, The Witness was one of those games that I didn't attach to because it felt more confusing, whereas this was, I just couldn't figure out like what name to type in what. Like, it was just that it's a case too of like, how when you play Phoenix Wright games, they just tell you to press everything no matter what. In this game, it really is like just take every name you find and just keep typing it until you get something. And that to me is not a great idea. Like, it should be linear enough that I should at least be able to find some sort of direction. Like, did either of you play Your Name?
Your Name? I don't
or
think
is
so.
it Your Name? It might not be Your Name. It was a game that was like all through like these FMV cutscenes of like a person getting interrogated in prison. It might not be Your Name, but I'm trying to remember.
Her name.
Thank you, Her Name.
Still no.
Yeah,
I
played
think
that.
Chris, you play it. So it's kind of like that where like you do eventually like figure it out and find your own way. Like there's not really that much of a need to hint. This one needed a lot more, and I think it just could have eased up a little bit. Now there is a second act once you finish the main one that is also dealing with more affairs, and it's a lot harder. So for those who are really into puzzle and logic games, you might get a kick out of that for difficulty, because that one gets real deeper and more difficult. I basically lived off of hints in that one. I could not get by on that. But like as a 4 to 6 hour like puzzle game, it was a nice little aside from a long JRPG. I really had a good time with just kind of messing around and finding how many deplorable rich scumbag human beings were part of this family tree that all don't deserve any of this money. It was great.
Cool.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one. I also finished a JRPG, a pretty big one. Glad to say. Yeah, Kaylan, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Kind of podcast with a bunch of weebs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm like a retro weeb because this was Octopath Traveler.
Does it make it better?
Retro weebs are better than modern weebs. Yeah, so I played Octopath Traveler 2. This game is such a huge improvement over Octopath Traveler 1. So I know that with Octopath Traveler 1, there was, it was reviewed well, but a lot of people still had like kind of issues with it. Like me personally, it was like a 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. But the concept of the Octopath Traveler games is that there's 8 characters and they each have their own story missions. But you can basically meet those characters in any order you want and bring any of those characters on other characters' missions. So you can you pick a character you start with, you do their chapter 1, and every character has like 4 or 5 chapters. You finish that one character and it'll be like, all right, so you've got this one character, you have no other party members yet. You can either go find these other characters and do their chapter 1, and you'll actually join them. So the character you started with will be there for the next one. And you can always have up to a party of 4. Or you can go to chapter 2 of that first character you have, and you're not going to have any other characters with you. You're just going to try and continue this person's story alone without gathering other party members. So my issue with the older game was that because you could do it in any order of which party members you picked up, all the stories felt very disjointed because they knew it's like, we don't know what party members, if any, people are going to have coming to this chapter or whatever for this character. So anytime you'd go do that, you'd only have dialogue and story from that one character. It was almost like the other characters appeared in battles during it. So the boss battle for that chapter would have 4 characters, but it's not like they ever said anything or added to the story. So it felt very disjointed. And by the time you were done, you did 8 characters, 4 to 5 chapters of each. Then there was a final boss, and all of a sudden, all the characters talked. It was like, hey, there's actually this final boss, and then they'd have all 8 characters because it would only show up if you were done all 8, so they knew you had all 8 characters at that point in the first game. But even then, it was kind of like all of a sudden you went from these characters being very separate to, hey, there's a boss, we have to go kill it together. And again, felt very disjointed. Great game mechanic and all that kind of stuff, but story-wise, it just didn't hit. This game improves on that a lot. Reason being is, yes, every character still has their own chapter 4 and 5 story, and it's separate. You don't see the other characters in their story. There's no dialogue from the other characters. It's still very individual. But they added a bunch of other missions or chapters that are multiple characters together. So they'll take 2 random characters, and now, even though they each have their own story they're going through, there's a scholar who's, had his family murdered by a rival scholar and he wants to go kill him, all the way down to there's a girl from a small town who's a dancer who wants to become a star and the biggest dancer in the world. So some lighthearted, some very dark.
All relatable, really.
All very relatable. But they'll put that dancer and a samurai whose brother murdered his father and kicked him out of his own kingdom, and he was supposed to die, but he got away nearly dead on a horse. That samurai and that dancer actually have their own character arc, which is completely unrelated to each individual story. So there's 4 to 5 chapters for each individual character, but then there's 4 of these connected stories that has 3 chapters each of them too. So they added a lot more of these missions or chapters or whatever you want to call them where the characters are all mixing and actually conversing, talking about what's kind of going on in their own stories too, because it's like they're all traveling together. Then, where this really, really improves is the end game. So, first, I'm like, none of this is any big spoilers, but if anybody wants, like, I don't know if Adam, you wanted to play through this. I have a feeling probably not. But it's for anybody who's like really doesn't want to know like a game mechanic or anything like that, who wants to go in really, really fresh and listening to the podcast, skip ahead for the next like 4 minutes, I guess. But it kind of pulls a chrono trigger where all of a sudden you've finished everybody's individual stories. You've finished all these connected stories of two characters going off and kind of doing something on their own, that it shows all 8 characters sitting around a fire, very much like this one scene in Chrono Trigger where all the characters in the game are sitting around a fire. And it's then that all of a sudden bad stuff kind of starts to happen. You're seeing all 8 characters, instead of it just being like, there's a boss, let's go kill it. All of a sudden they're like, what the fuck is going on? You know, the world is changing, something big and bad, very end of game bad is happening. And the 8 characters are actually all there together. And it's like, let's go investigate what's going on. It doesn't tell you where to go. There's no like, come to this town to start chapter 1. Now it's literally like, go figure this out on your own, explore, and like as a group of 8, work on this. Then as you're doing that, you start to find out stuff. And I won't say what any of it is. I'm not going to give any actual spoilers. But all of a sudden, it turns out as you're going, all 8 stories are extremely connected. And one NPC from one person's story is actually really connected with another NPC in another story. And people you thought were good and you were with for 40 hours of the game, helping you in 1 or 2 of the stories, all of a sudden is actually been using you this entire time for this other stuff. And none of it's just like stupid switches. All of it makes sense. And all of it was even slightly hinted throughout the stories. But it turns out all 8 of you aren't just these unique individuals. You're extremely connected this entire time. And you've all actually been dealing with this one end of world thing that none of you really knew. Because again, like the one character where she just wants to be the world's most famous dancer, you would have never expected all of a sudden her connection to what the hell is going on at the end of the game. Or the one character who's just a merchant who wants to, like, the town he's from is like really poor and he wants to go get money to help his town to thrive again. Everything is really connected. Then when you go to the final boss, it has the coolest JRPG kind of mechanic that I've ever seen. And it's where you go in, because normally you can only have 4 characters, obviously, per like team. You go into the final boss with your 4 characters, and something that you always do in Octopath Traveler is you have your 4 preferred characters. They're like level 75, while everybody's level 4. Everybody else is level 40. Because fuck those other characters. These are your 4 favorite. You're fighting the final boss. Halfway into his health, he sucks those 4 characters in, and it forces the other 4 characters to hop into the battle and actually defeat the final boss to save those other 4 characters. Then after that, you get the like true form of the final boss. When that shows up, you have all 8 characters to actually fight the final battle in, where normally you only ever have 4. Other games have had it, like Final Fantasy VI, you have 14 characters, so if one died in the final battle, like one more would come in to replace them, and you pick the order they'd show up. But it's not like you could just move freely between all 8 characters like you can here. Even if you do a heal spell that affects everybody, it heals all 8 characters. If there's a revive all, it revives all 8 characters. And it's just like a super huge and big badass kind of thing. But it's also really fucking hard. And if you didn't have those 8 characters, there's no fucking way you'd be able to beat it. It was a very, very, very difficult final boss. And I was over leveled 4 of my characters by like 15 to 20 levels or something ridiculous. And it was still really, really, really hard. But yeah, it is such a cool and awesome game in the fact that they took what kind of worked in the first one and actually fixed everything that was kind of wrong with it to bring it up to like a 9 out of 10. I'm not going to give it perfect because there's like a ton of like little things that I could mention that, you know, keep it away from being like the perfect 10 out of 10 game. But it was, I was really shocked at how much of an improvement it was over the previous game. The previous game, I kind of felt like I gotta get through this. I want to finish it. I got other games to play. This one, it was like I finished playing on my Xbox because it was on Game Pass, and I would log into my Xbox on my Steam Deck in bed because I couldn't stop. I was like, I have to go. Like, I can't believe this character has actually turned on me, or this character was actually doing this the whole time. Wait, those two know each other. Like, it was like watching like a crazy TV show where it's the season finale and everything's unraveling. It was so good. Like, highly recommend.
I like how Chris goes with, "Hey guys, just some minor spoilers," and then just drops like a bunch of like big twists and spoiler stuff.
I'm not
didn't
gonna
say
remember
any
any
of
of
the
this.
actual
If I ever do actually play the game, which I'm still curious enough about because I really do want to like that series. Because graphically, I love what they've done with it. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. The first one just really was just dry as hell.
Yes, the first one really was. And the only thing I would say about this one is like each character's first chapter still feels a little dry.
That
Because
would
the whole
be
idea is,
surprising, though. That's very much
Yeah.
like when you play Persona 4. It's a slow starter, but once it gets going, it gets going.
yeah, and that's how this one definitely. This could be just a JRPG trope, right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm just gonna go because I want to be a dancer, and then by the end of it, it's like, why is there blood everywhere? What the fuck? Like, it's just crazy stuff goes down. Yeah, so I haven't spoiled any actual story stuff because there is a ton of that. But yeah, I highly suggest just go in for a very, very fun ride and just expect to be like, wait, what? Wait, what? Wait, what? Just constantly.
Awesome. Did I see on Xbox that you also played Avowed?
I have installed it.
Oh,
I
okay.
have not started it yet.
I've got it installed
I've
as well.
tinkered with it, but then Trails came out and I changed hands. I played about an hour of Avowed. I'm gonna go back to it once I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, that's one,
I thought it was
also
actually it was decent. Also, the fact that like my favorite character from Mass Effect, Garrus Vakarian, is like one of your party members almost early on in the game. I'm like, okay, yep, you've got
Like-
me. You've got me for a little while.
The same voice actor?
Yep.
Or okay. Yeah,
No,
'cause I saw you
Garrus
post that.
Vakarian, the Turian, is in Avowed somehow.
Yeah, I didn't get the joke in our Discord.
Aren't we gonna get sued for this? As for legal to deal with, just go ahead.
I mean, they're both fantasy RPGs in some aspect. It counts, right?
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
like the
just
little bit that I
licensing.
did play, like story wise, I'm not deep enough to really have any comments, but like gameplay wise, it's perfectly serviceable. I think it's done more than enough at that point, and it's a gorgeous game. My God, it is colorful
Yeah.
as fuck.
Nice.
Yeah, them delaying that game looks like it was good, like a smart decision.
And I mean, they'll need it to do well because I don't know if you know, Kaylan, I don't know what you were segueing into, but did we see the story that Xbox sales is like really, really bad right now?
The
no,
console?
that was not where I was segueing, but we can go with that. Like,
Because where did I find the story? I'm just pulling it out. It was 9 meters that was reporting on it. They in 2024 sold a total of 2.7 million units in the US market. Now you're thinking, well, that's high. It was 3.8 last year.
Yeah.
They've dropped a
Is
lot.
this console sales or
Yes.
is this soft? Yeah. I think
I
that's
mean-
why we're seeing everything in the developer showcase,
Well, it's
whatever it was.
more in the sense that
Coming
it's
to
really
PS5, coming
showing
to
that
PS5.
like I think they've just given up on trying to sell consoles.
Yeah.
well, I mean, like, I think you think about it, like, kind of, yeah. I totally think that they've stopped selling consoles. Like, their thing that they sell is Game Pass, right? And
Yeah.
they've trained their audience for two things. Xbox owners don't buy video games. Like, you guys have seen my basement. You guys have seen the collection of video games I have. Like, I don't sell video games. I like to collect them. I haven't bought it. Like, I have my Xbox, Series X right there. I've not bought a single game, and I'm not going to
I
buy
just
a
have
game.
Forza Horizon 5 that came with it, and everything else has always been digital.
Right?
Or through Game
I've got
Pass,
Diablo,
really.
and that's it. And I just got Game Pass. So, like, the Xbox has been just a gateway to get into Game Pass.
Yeah.
And to get the exclusives, right? That's the reason why you bought an Xbox. But now that Game Pass is available on PC, great. You don't need an Xbox for that. And now that Xbox has basically said that we're coming to PlayStation and Nintendo, why would you buy an Xbox? Like, unless you're getting Game Pass, which I don't know if Game Pass is worth it at this point for the $30 you have to pay to get in for a console experience.
I was going to
PC
say, I think a large part of why the sales have also gone down is because 2024 was a basically like dead year for them. There was no reason to check out Game Pass for the most part. Whereas
with the exception of
I'd be curious on what the numbers look like by, let's say, the summer when like a bunch of games are coming up between March and June.
I think the damage is done though, because I think it's like people have settled in the camp of what they're doing with Xbox. Either you're going to play on Game Pass with PC, or you're waiting for it to come to PS5, and it's cheaper for you to buy a PS5 copy of the game than it is for you to buy an Xbox and then buy Game Pass.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I should have rephrased. I think the console numbers are never recovering. I'm more talking like how the Game Pass numbers go, because I would love to, because the article never mentioned, but I would love to know like what Game Pass's numbers were also like during 2024, because it was such a dead time. There was a point where, oh God, between not counting Call of Duty, which I literally just played to get it over with, and Indiana Jones, like I don't remember when the last time I used anything for Game Pass was before Indy.
Yeah. I did see in an article, but I don't have it open or anything like that. But in the last bit of the year, like basically because of Call of Duty, Indiana Jones and stuff, Game Pass was a lot up, but it was more specifically PC Game Pass that was very high up. And I think a lot of people have computers for different reasons, or maybe you already have a gaming PC. It's kind of like if you can get Game Pass on it, why would you buy an Xbox if you can just have it on a PC? If Game Pass was on PS5, I would not have my Xbox. I would
for sure.
I'd just sell it. Like I could just play. It's the reason I have an Xbox is Game Pass on the TV, and it's just. I mean, when I first got it, it was in 2020, so I had much higher hopes. But at this point, I only keep it around so that I can, play Octopath Traveler 2 on my PC. But if I didn't have the Xbox, would I still? I mean, I get Game Pass through the rewards program and stuff like that, but would I still use it? Yeah, I'd play it on my Steam Deck. I'd do the cloud gaming, or I would remote from my computer, or just play on the computer and have that, connect to the TV or something. There's so many other ways to play Game Pass without needing the Xbox now, and people were becoming aware of it. And I think that's why Microsoft is also very aware of it, and like, we're going to put our games on other things.
Yeah,
and
this is also an Xbox sort of marketing they've been putting out.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think there's also an argument to be made that like the value of Game Pass from a console perspective isn't there as it used to be, right?
No.
Like I'm still we talked about it when they were talking about raising the prices. Like I am grandfathered in that I'm paying like $13 a month for Game Pass, right? So I am paying the equivalent of 2 games a year. Even less, like it's 1.5 games at this point. I'm paying $120 a year. A brand new game costs $100 here in Canada. So like, as long as I play 1 game a year on Game Pass, 1.5, I'm coming out ahead. If it was $30 a month, which I think is what it is now in Canada, right? $30 a month, 25,
20 something. Yeah, it's something.
Let's say
25,
25,
and
right?
that's assuming that you're renewing, unlike like what I'm doing now, which is just looking to see if there's ever a deal of like 20-30% off and just getting like a 3-month pack.
Well, like that's why I said I'm stuck in this loop now where I'm not going to give up my like loyalty the grandfathered in price I'm at, but like I wouldn't have Game Pass if it was $25 a month, because I would now be dropping $300 a year for Game Pass if I'm keeping it in perpetuity, and that's the price of 3 games, and I have to I don't know if I'm playing that many, so why would someone get an Xbox for Game Pass? And then if it's for the exclusives, well, guess what? The exclusives are coming to PlayStation.
Yeah, like it's at the point now that if I had a computer that could run everything I want on PC, I would probably either sell my Xbox or pass it on to somebody else who could use it, because the only reason it's here is to play games that my PC can't run in 60 frames per second 4K the way I want it to.
Yeah.
And I just want, I got the Xbox because I like to rot on my couch while I play video games. I don't want to sit at my desk. And so that's why I'm there. So I don't think it's surprising that really Xbox consoles are down. They're basically a third-party publisher at this point.
Yeah. And I think it would be different if they had more exclusive, even if it was still just Game Pass, but they had more good exclusives on there, which I mean this year does seem to be better than
that's
at
the
least
hope, is that they're finally increasing the catalog a bit.
Yeah.
But
because
it's not just increasing the catalog, because there's a quality versus quantity issue, right?
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, like increasing the number of quality titles.
Well, yeah, but at the same point,
just
they weren't even
Redfall.
releasing really any games at all either, apart from what they were taking from indie and third party.
Yeah.
So when I say quantity, I'm also meaning in the sense of there's more than 2 games releasing in a 6-month period.
Yeah.
Unlike a certain other first party developer that we'll probably get to.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's interesting though that you make that. Like, when was that article? Like, what was the rate that they said that they? Do you remember?
For what?
2.7
December, right?
Yeah,
Like when they said like
million in the U.S. market.
for all of 2024.
Yes.
Which is not good because like Indiana Jones, arguably one of the biggest and best games for Xbox in probably years.
Yeah, like there's
And
another. I'm
you
just
have Call
looking
of
here. There's
Duty.
another bit where it said that in the quarter ending June 2024, it was a 42% drop in hardware sales.
Right? So like I don't know, like you drop Indiana Jones and you drop Call of Duty, it's like two of the biggest games for Xbox in a while, and it doesn't move the needle that much. Like
Well, it moved the needle, but on PC. I think it did not cause people to be like, oh, I got to pick up a console
yeah.
because I got to play indie. Because either you've got a PC or something and you can just buy 1 month of Game Pass and play it there, or, oh, it's also coming to PS5. Maybe I don't have to go through all this hassle. I'll just buy it on sale on PS5 or something. Sure, it's a bit more than Game Pass, but the hassle, if you don't already have an Xbox, like it's not worth buying an Xbox for indie.
I think we're also at the point too that people are happy with waiting out for the next generation now because we're already 5 years in. I think people are like, well, they're probably going to announce the next one somewhere down the line anyway. I'm
not ready yet. Don't like. I feel like I've barely got my money's worth out of my PlayStation 5.
Yeah, same. Absolutely.
Speaking of PlayStation, let's dogpile on that one now.
I mean, I won't dogpile, but I will say that I don't think this was for any of us. I think this is for a much different clientele than what we were.
Whoa. There was 3 things I really liked on here.
And
okay, but enough about Sonic Racing.
That was one.
Okay, can we talk about Sonic Racing for a second?
Yeah,
we
can.
What a stupid franchise that is.
How dare you?
What?
Chris, hear me out. I'm not opposed to Sonic. I'm not opposed to racing. But you have a character whose whole thing is that he runs fast. Why does he need a car? You should have just done a racing game.
His legs are sore, okay?
You could have made it like it's just like, oh, this looks like a Mario Kart ripoff, which it is. Where they said, hey, look, you now just have a Sonic game where you have Sonic running like what? Like
they did. It was called Sonic R, and it did terribly.
Sonic R. It was horrible.
That's why they haven't done it since. Because they tried it.
Should be in the game. It's like if you use a superpower to like go faster or boost, Sonic just gets the fuck out of the car and runs himself. I feel like that'd be a cute
raises
little
questions. Why is he in the car in the first place if he's faster when he runs?
Again, his legs are hurting. There's a hole in his shoe.
Okay, if it was the same game and all the characters were in cars except Sonic and Shadow who can run fast, they're just running next to the cars, would you feel better about this franchise?
I mean, like, you could get, like, Tails flying.
Yeah, but he can't fly as fast as Sonic.
That's cheating.
So he can fly, but
the rules state the wheels, there has to be something touching the track.
I have a problem with Sonic being in a car. It seems unnecessary.
Your complaints are unnecessary.
I squealed like a teenage girl.
I heard you from here. I heard you from here when I was watching the State of Play. I was like, what the hell is that girlish scream?
Yeah. Like when they're driving and all of a sudden a ring shows up and it's a portal to another area and the car turns into a plane and shit. I was, oh God.
So why does Tails need a
plane?
What? Because, what, are you going to drive a car in the sky? Come on,
no,
Kaylan.
when he's...
And that's why Sonic can't run. How would he run in the sky?
He has to go slow. The only way, that's the thing. The only way you can complete that track is you'd have to collect all the emeralds before you get to that portal. Otherwise, you're screwed.
It may be Sonic, but even they have to follow the laws of physics, Kaylan.
Of course. Oh, my mistake.
A hedgehog that can run like 300 kilometers an hour, but forget that.
And wears shoes, but no clothes.
How do you know they're not clothes? It could be a bodysuit. How dare you?
Well, that's just creepy, and now we're ruining Sonic for everybody.
As opposed to what, Chris? As opposed to what?
The amount of franchises we've ruined.
The furry
in this
community
podcast.
ruined Sonic a long time ago.
Okay, you are right on that. I have to be
also,
careful
Sonic
with
06 ruined Sonic a long time ago.
But yeah, I don't know if that was necessarily like not the show for me. Like overall, like I was disappointed with this show. I am admittedly the Sony pony on this channel, and I was like excited for this, but like I'm getting so fed up with State of Plays, and like there just doesn't seem to be a vision or expectation of what these are supposed to be, right? Like I think the problem is like I think back now, and I could barely think of, and like I can't name like a lot of the games that were shown there. I think there's a problem that like there was too many games over too short a period that it's just like bam, 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 bam. Like we're just going through these games and there's not enough time to breathe and see. And like, correct me if it was just me, but I felt like a lot of these games all look the same, like dark, creepy, black gray kind of.
Because we're all trying to be Soulsborne right now.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
but
remember
like,
when we talked about the Summer Game Fest where everything was a sci-fi horror, even though there also was Directive 8020 in that, which was also a sci-fi horror. But like, this is where we're at. It's just, this is why I said it. This wasn't for us because half of the entire catalog was all for the Soulsborne crowd.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. Like,
most of the games that I liked on there were things we already knew existed, like Sonic Racing we already knew about, Split Fiction we already knew about, Monster Hunter Wilds we already knew about. The only thing I can say that I had like mild interest in was the new Housemarque game. That's it.
But what about the new Shinobi?
Nah.
That's my other game I was super... What? It's old school Shinobi and he's back.
Yeah, I hate that game. It was hard.
That's the point, but it's a pretty Soulsborne instead of just like Souls-like. It's pretty.
Yeah, but
Shinobi.
it's Soulsborne. I don't like it.
I'm kind of excited about Darwin's Paradox. That seems fun.
That does seem fun.
Your little octopus escaping a secret lab.
It's Octodad before he became a dad.
The prequel.
It's the prequel.
Yeah, like I mean, there was some like that was like cool and stuff. Like I thought the Hell Is Us looks cool. I thought the what was that like sci-fi one? Like Metal Eden looked cool. I'm super excited for Metal Gear Solid. I mean, I'm curious. Yeah, Mind's Eye looks awesome. I think that's probably the one I was most excited for there. But like a lot of these all look very similar.
Like, I saw a lot of people getting really big on Tides of Annihilation, and I looked at that trailer and went, guys, that looks like 17 other games right now. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Listen, there was one other really good one, and it was DLC for Dave the Diver mixing with Yakuza. I am super excited about that. I'm getting that. I don't know if it's a purchase or if it's an update. I don't care. Dave the Diver is coming home.
The other problem I had with like the state of play, and I think I've talked about this before, like if I was designing my own state of play, is like there was too many games that were announced with no release dates or only with release windows. I'm sorry that if you're making a state of play, you need to have a concrete date in place.
Yeah, you know. I won't take a lot of slander on this, but I will say that there are way too many games where it's like, guys, state of plays aren't like Summer Game Fest where we're just showing proof of concepts. Like, this is literally just what's coming in. Usually, I've said this for a while, state of play should just be what's coming in the next like quarter.
Yeah.
Honestly, just do one a quarter. Just do one a quarter and say, hey, here's what's coming out January to March. Here's what's coming out April to June. Like, do that, because that's essentially what Xbox's developer showcase was. It was all stuff that's basically coming out in the second quarter.
Yeah, I would say state of play like 6-month window. Like, do one in the winter, being like, hey, here's from January to June. And then here's from June to
like the
December.
only exception you could say is if it's one of their big like first party games and you want to put out there with no release date, fine. Like if you want to just put out another Wolverine trailer or something, cool, whatever. But like for all of these other games that, let's be honest, like they're niche and most people aren't paying attention to, the fact that they also don't even come with a release date, it's like, so A, I don't care about this game, and B, I don't even know when I'm supposed to care about this game, so what was the point?
Well, it's just going to disappear. It's like, oh, cool, and then we're not going to hear about it for years.
Yeah,
and
you may never even hear about the game again because it may just get silently canceled.
Maybe, but even if it does, it's like, what's the point? Like, if you're 18 months out from your like game,
why are you on a state of play?
Why are you on a state of play? Because like, you know, you're gonna like you're not big enough that you're gonna be getting that constant attention. They're gonna be in the zeitgeist. You're gonna come back out and you're gonna have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like state of play should either be like big name games that are just hyping you up for future release, or games that are coming out in like a month or two, so you're ready to put it on your pre-order list because it's coming.
Exactly. Like when people are like pre-order now for 2026, I'm like, that's a little ambitious there. Let's simmer down a little bit. Like I completely agree. I think there's nothing wrong with, hey, at the end of a state of play being like, here's our next big flagship coming later this year. Like Ghost of Yotei would have been perfect at the end of this, being like, hey, check this out. Or even like Metal Gear Solid Delta, where it's like, hey, here's the big game.
Because it got a release date. That would have made sense to be your last thing.
Yeah.
I think I don't know like how we all feel about it, but I think we're at a point that we can probably just say that we don't necessarily have a problem with the games that are being featured at State of Play. It's what State of Play is being used for.
Well, I don't even know if we know what it's being used for, because like Randy Pitchford was on there. He's like, hey, check us out in a little bit because we're going to be doing another State of Play in like May for Borderlands. It's like, okay, so wait, we're doing some State of Plays that are specific to one game, and then we're doing some State of Plays that are just like scatter shot of throw everything to the wall and see what sticks. Like,
yeah, like it's at the point that if I was like part of like the market or branding or whatever fucking department for Sony for PlayStation right now, I'd be like, guys, it's simple. State of Play, quarters. Anything else are showcases, like individual showcases. And if we want to do a big one, we can have like, I don't know, like the summer State of Play, but we just end up calling it the Summer Spectacular. I don't know what the fuck you want to call it, but like
Sony Summer Showcase. I don't.
Yeah, that's good.
We already know what the State of Play is actually for. You guys are saying like we don't know what State of Plays are even for.
It's for arguing about Sonic on his feet.
No, first of all, there's no argument he should be in that car. He wants to. He can do what he wants. Second, State of Plays are for Sony to show what next remastered game they're putting out, like Days Gone. That's the point. Because they can't do a showcase for it.
I'm
because
amazed
they know
we
they
didn't
get
get
too
another
much
Last of Us thing in there.
I'd be more excited for Last of Us, to be honest.
Last of Us Part 2 remasters is inside Days Gone.
You know, it'd be a better show if it was another Last of Us remake, because then I'd be bitching about it for 5 minutes straight.
There's DLC that they could remaster. The Left Behind DLC can be remastered.
They could remaster the show. It's like a year old or 2 years old. They could just remaster that. The Last of Us, the TV show, the remaster. And it's literally the same thing, but now in 8K or something. I don't know.
But yeah, I will say, like, legit, apart from games that we already knew about, I actually am very interested in what Saros is from Housemarque, and that's basically it.
So I was reading about it, I was watching a podcast, and they were talking about Saros, and I tried Returnal. Returnal did not click for me because it was, once again, gamer dad. I don't have time to like.
Yeah, that's
do
not
this
a game for somebody.
No,
yeah. I'm not going into that. But apparently with Saros is that you actually each run you get bigger and stronger. So I'm like, cool. I'm down for. I don't need to have a quick game. I don't need to have a game that is easy. But I need one that rewards my time. If I'm giving you an hour of my time, give me something back. And that sounds like what Saros is. And cool. Returnal sounded awesome, and everyone loves Returnal.
Returnal is fantastic, but it is hard as fuck.
And I don't got time for that. And like I've heard that like the progression is not forgiving in that like you get stuff each run, like you have to basically start from scratch.
A lot of it is mostly just experience and how to deal with it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with that bullshit.
Yeah. No, I don't have time for that either.
I want to circle back and I want to dunk on Days Gone.
Chris, you are full of shit that you don't have time for that. Your backlog is just forcing you out of it.
That's why I don't have time, because why would I play the same
game
on repeat?
Well, then maybe you didn't play so many goddamn retro games when you shouldn't be.
I'm not. I actually haven't played any retro games yet this year. Wait. I don't know if that's true, but I know that it's true for the last week.
Wrong.
The last week I haven't.
You played Octopath Traveler, which is an homage to retro games.
Yeah, it's an homage, but it's still a new game. It's newish.
No. I've not been doing cocaine. I've just been doing crack. It's okay.
Yeah, it's different. That's gaming. Gaming crack is different than gaming cocaine. Everybody knows that.
Chris is the kind of person that like you find him in the corner and he's just playing Phantasy Star 3. Be like, no, I swear it's not what you think it is.
It's my friends. I'm holding it for a friend.
Holding it for. Yeah. Hey, I'm finding ways to tackle my backlog. I got the PS Portal and shit. Now I can play more PlayStation on the go. That was such a good purchase. I was actually worried about it because it's not needed in the sense that I have a Steam Deck and you can stream to. There are two different apps that I had on my Steam Deck. It's like PXPlay and Chiaki or something. They're both just the remote play app, like the Android app, I think, just like converted to work on Linux on the Steam Deck. And it worked great. And technically the settings are like more customizable than the PS Portal because that's more just like meant to just work. But I don't know. It was something about like loading up Steam and then looking through all my Steam games to find the PlayStation app and then loading that up and then it would finally connect to the PlayStation app. I barely played my PlayStation games on my Steam Deck because I would get fucking distracted halfway through. I just searched through my backlog to get to my PlayStation. It's a horrible idea. That's never going to work. It's like, ooh, Dead Cells. And all of a sudden I'm playing a different game. I'm like, where did I get?
What a flex on Chris. I have so much money to just throw at this minor inconvenience.
No, I do not. It was definitely not smart financially, but it is great backlog wise,
Oh,
because now
I love my Portal.
Oh yeah, like like obviously all the haptics. One of the reasons too is I loaded up Astrobot to play some new levels on the Steam Deck. That was the saddest experience of my life. It looked great, like the image, but
Didn't
not
get that
having
text
the haptic controller in Astrobot, I realize is like half the experience. Like
Right.
it is so sad running around as
And
Astrobot
not
or whatever
feeling the
his
little
name.
tippy taps.
And not feeling the little tippy taps. It was like the
You need the tippy
normal
taps.
rumble. I was like, okay, either he's an elephant or this sucks. Like I don't understand what it is. Yeah, it was insane. Like just how much of the experience changed. And then when I loaded up that PS Portal, my idea was like, all right, I'll buy it, I'll try it for like a few days, I'll see if it's really that much better. And if it's not, then I'll return it.
Fantastic.
And yeah,
Side note,
I went
isn't
back
it
and forth.
incredible that of all the things y'all are talking so positively about, it's the one thing that we trashed the most when it was first announced?
We trashed it so hard.
I
Like this
think
is
we've
the
learned-
dumbest little tablet.
I think if us and our listeners have taken anything away, it's that go with the opposite of what we say.
Not true. Just
'Cause
when
I-
we really
no,
trash something,
no,
that usually means
no.
it's going to end up being good.
No, I presented
Like
the jury
Sonic Racing.
Exhibit A, the Portal. Exhibit B, we all said, man, Indiana Jones is a first-person game. What stupid idea that is. 2 or 3 of us were like game of the
I
year,
didn't
like...
say it was going to be bad because of what game it was. I said it was going to be bad because Bethesda was making it.
Regardless, like I'm just saying, the evidence shows
Yeah.
that we are not good in terms of our.
It's okay. I
averages.
trashed
Yeah.
Veilguard and I was right.
I hate having too many subscribers and $1 million. Does it work?
No, it doesn't work that way.
Damn it.
I mean, once you hate it, if you found out this is how.
So
it
I
works.
need to try this
Yeah.
now. That Mass Effect remake is going to be so fucking bad. It's going to be the biggest cancer on the godforsaken planet. Not to mention every Xbox game that's coming out this year. They're all going to be terrible. I don't even know why Doom: The Dark Ages even exists. Like, who the hell wants to play another Doom game? I thought we'd got dead on this since Doom 1. Really? Like, who plays Doom anymore? I'm trying, guys. I'm really trying.
I know. It was good. It was good. I was sold.
Once
but I
again,
think it's
Days Gone remaster. What a stupid idea.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, we
like,
can agree
who
on
was-
that. I don't
who was-
think like in a twist of fate, like suddenly Days Gone the remaster is going to suddenly be like game of the year. Okay.
Did you guys play remaster or the Days Gone, and how far did you guys get?
Didn't even
2
try it.
hours.
Okay. I played it and I beat it because once again, somebody put it right here. It's a good game. I like it. I think it got a lot of hate that it didn't rightly deserve. It was fun. It was a cool idea. It was a cool experience. It is not like needing a remaster, right? I think this game already had like an SPF. This is not a sunscreen thing. An FPS boost with the when the
PS5?
PlayStation, when the PS5 came out. I think it already had a boost, so I don't know why it needs a remaster. But the game, the troubles and the problems that game has is not a result of the time it was made. It's not a result of like, oh, it's janky, oh, it's like outdated, or like the controls don't work. The problems that I had with Days Gone was that the dialogue was cringy as hell. Like,
That's why
go
I
on
quit.
YouTube, you can watch it. Right? Second, the freaker, I don't care. They're freakers, they're zombies. It's a zombie game, whatever. The problem is that the horde mode and the horde hunting doesn't start happening until at least the halfway point of the game. There's like maybe one
Yeah, the
horde
big
you fight in
selling
the
point
beginning.
did not exist in the time I played.
Oh, that's
No.
weird.
Like, it's not until like later in the game when you start taking on these like 50, 100 plus horde things. And it's awesome when it does. And then the third is that the game is just so damn long. Like, I think if you look at like Adam, well, I'm going to see how long to beat, but like,
Already doing it.
you're playing this game and you're like, okay, cool, I know what the story's about. We're going to do this. You get to this point, you get there, and then it's like, oh, by the way, here's a whole other 10 to 15 hours on what is already a 30-hour game.
35 to 65, depending on how much you get out of it.
Oh,
Right? And
what
it's
the
like,
fuck?
it is one of those things where it's like you have a lot of cool ideas, you're doing a lot of cool things, but you've set the table too big.
Mm.
It needed to be trimmed, it needed to be cut down, and it would have been a great game. So, like, I don't think this remaster is going to do anything. I think, like, your hardcore, the people who play Days Gone have played it, we've enjoyed it, we've had a good time, we're moving on. And those who haven't, I don't think it's going to win anyone over. So, like,
No.
Nope.
I don't know.
And besides, State of Decay 3 is going to be probably on PlayStation at this point anyway, so you'll be fine.
True.
You're not wrong. Yeah, like Days Gone is already on PS5. Like you can just play the PS4
It's on PC
version
as well,
of it.
so like really.
And it's on PC. I doubt it's selling well there. Maybe people are just like, I want PlayStation games on my PC, and they just don't know, so they buy it by accident.
And
But yeah,
I have
like
to
I
look it
feel
up
like
now.
if it has the
you can look it up.
if it has the 60 FPS patch, what else do you need it to do on the PS5 where it's like this game's like almost there? I feel like it just needs like a little bit more in textures and it'll be game of the year. Like I don't think anyone's thinking that. But then again,
so
Sony is
estimations are around
remastering.
3 million people got it on Steam. I'm surprised. The number's at 1750 right now currently. I'm like, that's more than I would have assumed for this game still. But
I
its
could see it, like-
its all-time peak was around 27,000 when it first happened.
Mm. I could see on PC you can mod, right, and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you could probably improve it a little bit. Maybe it is a game that's kind of got a bit of an extra life due to modding, but
Yeah, it was one of the very first PlayStation games put on PC as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was right. I think it was like the second one. It was like Horizon Zero Dawn, and then Days Gone, I think, was second. So I think it's also like people were like hyped that PlayStation games just in general were coming. So even if it's like not a great game, they're like, well, I gotta get my PlayStation games. They're coming. Like they're gonna actually be on PC. I want them now.
I think honestly you're burying the lead though. Where's our Knack remasters?
Don't do that.
Knack is timeless and will never need a remaster.
You're right.
The
I don't
opposite
know
of
even
what
know
you
why
say
question.
is what happens. It's gonna happen now.
Knack will always the sun's gonna be burning out, the world's crusted, and Knack will still be as good as it will ever have been.
So is Zero. Is there 3 of them? A trilogy. I could see like PS6 having a trilogy remaster or something as one of its launch titles. Knack trilogy. Oh,
I just feel like there's so many other games that could like do better. Like, where's our Infamous remaster? Infamous needs a remaster.
like that's on like the original one is on PS3. You can't play it now. It
Could
makes
you
sense.
imagine Infamous like 1 and 2 on PS5, 4K, 60 FPS with HDR support?
That would be amazing, and it makes sense. PS3, you can't play those games. Like even Sony can't figure out how to emulate them.
Yeah.
You got to cloud stream them from like a PlayStation 3 in Japan somewhere. Like you got to just remaster that. Like they had the Nathan Drake collection come out where it was the first 3 games. I feel like people were like, this makes sense. I'm glad these games are in a collection
That's
because
because Sony cares about
PS3.
Uncharted.
Yeah.
I'd also put my money out for Killzone 1 and 2 remake. Those games were fantastic.
Yeah, but those are things you want. Like, should I just torture Chris by saying there was an article recently in Video Games Chronicle talking that the Final Fantasy 9 and Tactics remakes are actually still in development, even though we both know that we won't believe it until we see it?
I don't believe it until I see it.
Like,
I don't
look,
believe it until I see it.
Guys,
we
they are
can't
not
will
making
good
those
things
games.
on this podcast. We can only will bad things. That's just how it works.
It's a monkey. This podcast just a monkey paw.
I hate Xenogears, and I hope it never gets reported, remastered, or remade. Because I would hate all
Square's
3
gonna
of
hear
those.
the show and go, "Oh, okay, so that's validation to what we thought." Got it.
He was the one guy.
guys, coming down from head office. Chris doesn't want it. All right, shut her down.
We got him. We finally got him.
We were 97% done too. Oh.
Guys, I want to throw one last thing out. Just a quick recommendation before we wrap up this week's episode. Book recommendation. I was talking about this in the Discord. I dabbled in the dungeon. What the hell is it called? Dungeon Crawler Carl. Guys, if you guys are looking for a book, if you're watching this and you guys are looking for a book, this is basically a video game in a book. Did either of you guys ever read like Ready Player One?
Oh yeah, I got Ready Player One, and apparently there was a sequel because I bought it and I forgot it's on my shelf.
There is,
I
but this
don't
is
know what
basically
books
like okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to touch that one.
I'm
Chris,
legit like half joking because I can't. I think the last time I actually read a book cover to cover was high school.
Oh my god, no.
So,
Okay.
Chris, this is basically like very similar feels to Ready Player One. Like
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
different book, but that same idea. So like, what happens? And I'm not going to go too far into spoilers. This is like the first 3 to 4 chapters. Like not a lot in terms of the book.
Okay.
So basically, what happens is like Earth gets destroyed by these aliens. few human survivors are left, and they are left to go into this dungeon that is created to basically win back Earth from the aliens. It's a very dumb concept, but stick with me on this. So they create like these 18 levels of a dungeon, and anyone who survives can enter this dungeon, and like they get player stats. So like they get inventory, there's achievements, there's guilds, like all sorts of like gaming-esque stuff. So like the guy walks in and he's like wearing a pair of boxers, and like all of a sudden like something in it, he's got this thing in his mind, like basically everyone who survives gets like this thing with like an implant. It's not an implant, but basically like the aliens are somehow broadcasting things into everyone's head. So like he gets down into the dungeon, it's like achievement, like you came in without pants, and it's like that kind of like he's popping off achievements for stupid things, and like he's getting loot boxes and stuff. And so it's a video game in every sense, and like it is dropping like very much like Ready Player One. It's dropping pop culture references, like it's referencing The Matrix, it's referencing like Jean-Claude Van Damme and stuff. So like I am in a very good way, like it's homage to Ready Player One. It's a lot like that, a little less focused on like the 80s kind of pop culture, but just video game pop culture in general, right? Like some of the creatures that he's fighting are very similar, and like there's at one point he gets down into the dungeon and there's like, which way do I go? And like there's like the obvious path, and it's like, oh, clearly like the developer like wants me to go down that way. It's like, no, but he should have gone the other way, because you never go the way that the developer wants you to go. Like just very like this is an homage to video games. And if you are at all interested, like I am listening to the audiobook on this. I got it like I was driving in the car for a long time, so I'm like, I'm gonna get this as an audiobook. I've read like 6 chapters, or I've listened to 6 chapters in the span of like less than 24 hours, because all I want to do is just listen to this book. And there's a whole bunch of the series. So yeah, highly recommend it if you're looking for a book. If you like video games and you've not read a book and you want to get into it, highly recommend Dungeon Crawler Carl.
That sounds amazing. My one question with the audiobook specifically, how is the person reading it? Like, are they
really
good? Okay.
Really good. So it's not a 1-for-1. The best way I can describe it, he has the same sort of like, it's not as bad as, but I'm getting very much vibes of like David Puddy from Seinfeld, like that kind of
Okay.
He's like, hey, we're gonna go down the dungeon now, and like he's got that voice. Like it's not bad, but it's funny because I listen to it and it sounds like, I imagine this is kind of what like a David Puddy reading an audiobook would sound like, and I love it. But it also has like, he also does inflections and stuff, like when, like I mentioned, like there's achievements, he's like, what achievement? You did that. Like he does inflections and voices and stuff. Like it is really well done.
Okay.
I think it's only one person. I don't quote me on that, but it's very well done. I'm enjoying it. Like I feel like the inflections that he has in this book probably actually elevated a little bit. So like can't speak to the audio, to like the book itself, reading it, but I am enjoying the audiobook version and like the different inflections from the readers. So
I love that. Yeah.
Totally recommend it.
All right. Because I was determining if I was going to buy the book or get the audiobook.
Yeah. I mean, I think you like, I'm not encouraging it. Like people should get paid for what they do. You could, I think there's actually a preview on Audible if you want to listen to like the first 5 minutes or something like that. Or if you need a little bit more, you could probably find it on some sort of tubes that feature you websites kind of thing. I'm not advocating, like, I would encourage, like, this is well done. I would want to see the author and the performers get their pay. But if you are on the fence, like, definitely check it out and then throw some bucks their way. Like, it's really worth the money, and I'd like to see them continue with the series. I'm basically saying give it a try, but it's worth it.
I think I'm gonna pick this up no matter what.
Yeah.
Because like Ready Player One, I loved the other book done by the Ready Player One guy,
Armada.
Loved that. And so I just can tell like this is gonna be one of those I'm not putting it down things.
It's very much in that vein.
It will keep me away from my backlog, but that's okay. That's okay.
I mean, you could
like
get the
nothing's ever
audiobook and
stopped
play
you, especially if you just keep listening to my recommendations. So
you can get the audiobook and start playing it while you game.
That's true.
I'm sure there's a game that will work for it.
Probably. There's probably a game.
Is there a new like Picross game at some point?
Oh my god, that'd be perfect. But then I'm gonna have to go buy a Picross game, and all I did was
you're gonna be so hard done by if that happened.
I love Picross. Okay. Get a book, play Picross. Got it.
I guess it's probably a good time to move on to questions to end off the show here. Seems like a good spot now. We were like, over an hour in. We
I'm
actually
gonna
got
have
questions.
to bounce actually shortly.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. So we actually got questions now in the Discord. Again, linktree/PixelPlay Podcast, link to our Discord there. We also do have an email. I keep forgetting to shout this out, but askpixelplay@gmail.com if you want to ask us questions there as well, if you don't want to subscribe to the Discord. But we have a couple of questions in our chat here. One coming from the Nitro Bro saying, what is an absurd game, not mainstream or super popular, that you'd like to see a remake of? The one that, honestly, Chris and I, we recorded a side quest for games that we wanted to add to a PS2 classic. I think I might just go with the game that we joked about at the end of that specific episode, and I might say The Bouncer on PS4 or PS2.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Just as like
I love
a really cool, like, I think early, like ahead of its time in terms of the kind of content that it was doing, but like it's a really good brawler if you take away the fact that it's not a very good brawler, if that makes any sense.
Well, I'm going to throw out mine real quick, and that's just another PS2 launch title with Phantasmic. I think I was going to say some crazy word where I mixed it and I couldn't do it, but I think it needs something because that's ridiculous, and I want Sony to just recognize one of the most ridiculous games and just put it on PS5. I want them to even call it like remastered too. I just want them to do it. Phantasmic remastered.
What about you, Kaylan?
There was an original Xbox game called Bloodwake, which is like a boating combat game. And I remember that was really cool. And I'd like to see that remastered. I feel like boat combat, aquatic combat has been lost. Also, another shout out I'm going to throw out there is Tom Clancy's End War. That was a really cool science fiction kind of game where you were actually controlling
360 era, I think.
PS3 360, and it was it used like the mic, so you were just giving audio commands and stuff. And I would like to see that get remastered as well.
Yeah, that'd be cool with the mics, because now even controllers just have the mics like built right in and stuff, right? So yeah.
And I think Chris will also agree. If I was throwing another one out there, Legend of the Mystical Ninja on from the N64.
Oh yeah.
I think we talked about it not too long ago, but that one we just always come back to.
Yeah. And yeah, the only other one I could think of that's along those lines too is on the original Nintendo, there was a game called Little Ninja Brothers. It was like a 2-player ninja-ish game, which was bonkers as all hell. It was like Dragon Ball Z, where it's just like crazy characters with crazy shit going on. I played the hell out of that growing up with my best friend Brent, and that game was so much fun. But like it kind of just died off. I think it had a sequel on Super Nintendo. But yeah, like that would be really cool to have that come back, but with a much more modern look to it, because it is an NES game.
One I'm going to throw out, and I don't know if it necessarily needs a remaster, but I'd like to just see it more accessible. Zombies Ate My Neighbors. I feel like that would be an awesome, like, 4-player couch co-op.
Was it getting one? I thought it was getting one at some point. Maybe it already got released.
I'll check.
Stubbs the Zombie got one, which was like not the same thing, obviously, but there's like that was one that I remembered coming out, which maybe you could be thinking of. I don't know.
No, I don't see it.
I just don't remember if it ever came out. Let me see.
I don't think so.
Wikipedia.
It doesn't matter. But yeah, that game definitely could benefit from like a 4-player couch co-op.
I do remember a trailer that they were re-releasing it. I just can't remember what it was in the end, but yeah.
Probably on a State of Play.
Who knows?
Oh, you were thinking the Days Gone remaster, which is obviously my final one I wanted to make sure I threw out there. And I honestly, until Dawn,
I thought you were going to say Sonic R,
to...
just to give Kaylan what he wants.
Sonic Renan.
And then the last question, I'm gonna struggle pronouncing this name. I think it's pronounced Kaylan, who just says,
"Yeah, that's right."
Who just says, "Why do you have such bad taste in gaming?" I'm assuming that's directed at Chris.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Considering that you, Adam, were the only one who had written in that entire thread at first, yes, it must be me.
What? No, impossible. But the correct answer is I don't have a bad taste in games. I have the best taste in games. But it's better for the show if we claim that I have a bad taste in games because it's good for the content.
Good for you to jump on that sword.
Also, The Last of Us sucks.
Oh, God. Gotta do this.
I'm not going to have this slander occur anymore, so we're going to wrap it up there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like that and you like what we do, you can always find us anywhere you get your podcasts, or if you want to see these lovely faces as we make this podcast, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify. Damn, Chris, that was way too good that you did it that way. That is clearly not the
People on
first time.
YouTube have no idea what
slow.
happened.
Must be easy with that chiseled jaw.
It was just don't go too fast. You have to really slow it down the second half. That's all it is.
Well, if you want to see that, you can find us on YouTube or Spotify, where we do video podcasts as well. If you want to submit questions, you can find us at linktr.ee/PixelPlay Podcast. You can join the Discord, ask questions there, or you can ask us at, Adam, what's that email address again?
askpixelplay@gmail.com.
Fantastic. And we'd love to answer those questions online. If you haven't yet, subscribe, that's how, the whole internet world knows that we exist, and it helps us out, and we greatly appreciate it. With that, we'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.